What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Y'all, Gypsy Rose has officially lost her mind. This girl has decided to shave off all of her hair in between becoming a random artist, making fun of content creators, harassing her old best friend on TikTok. She has shaved her head, and I think it has a lot to do with Gypsy's prison emails being released. And not only that, there's something else that I think people are kind of forgetting that a couple of people have also mentioned, but I want to give my take on, which is the CPS document that Gypsy Rose has sent out to other people, specifically content creators, because according to Gypsy, she has decided to take herself off of the internet and give the people what they want, yet somehow she still manages to find her way out and be talked about. It's so bizarre how that happens. But I want to get into some information about Gypsy's CPS report that she released, showing that she was essentially cleared of all neglect or abuse, and give my take on whether it's actually true or whether Gypsy forged this paperwork, which I'll leave to you guys to decide at the end, and get into a little bit more of Gypsy's behavior lately. So before we get into all of that, make sure you like and hit the subscribe button. I also want to give a shout out for a super thanks to Mellow Yellow 2022. Thank you for that. I appreciate it so very much. But let's go ahead and get into what I think about Gypsy, this whole CPS thing, and this girl shaving her hair. So I know I am not alone, and I have seen many other people also questioning the validity of this document that Gypsy put out, which basically was a report or a letter that they send out following an investigation. We know that Gypsy and Ken were reported to DCFS for the safety and concern for Aurora's sake, and as Ken ultimately revealed to everybody, that they did drug tests, they did hair follicle tests, they did a lot of things, which personally I feel like that's a little bit excessive for what they reported for.
Cookies.
And of course, they tested us, because these allegations were, we're neglecting Aurora, we're leaving her at home to go out and party, and we're blowing wind in her face, and just not taking care of her. It was all false, all BS. And so I knew that, inevitably we'd have to deal with a caseworker. And so she came over, she interviewed us separately, toured our house, took pictures of everything, made sure, and I'm trying to watch my verbiage on this because I know we would have to deal with a caseworker. And so she came over, she interviewed us separately, toured our house, took pictures of everything, made sure, and I'm trying to watch my verbiage on this because I know there are a lot of things you can say to get banned or get your live kicked off. So words I would never say. They made sure, all of our pew-pews were locked up correctly and made sure that we didn't have any chemicals out and available. Just all the normal stuff. And then they, of course, tested us. And not only were UAs given, but hair was given. Okay? And just recently, as of a few months ago, our case was closed because nothing comes back. And they realized that as much as you guys don't want it to be true, as much as a lot of our haters and snarks there don't want it to be true, Aurora is in a very safe environment and in a very well taken care of household. And that's just the reality that y'all have to get over. So if you don't believe me when I say that I'm not using anything, you can believe the fact that our case file is closed and that we were tested and for that case file to be closed. And our caseworker even told us, unfortunately, because of y'all's notoriety, I don't expect these false calls to stop coming in, just like with her PO, all the time, false calls, lies, etc. So for me to go and develop a habit right now, knowing that, any day they can come knock on my door again, it's just ridiculous. It's out of the question, and it's just never going to happen. So you believe what you want, but that's the facts and that's the reality. Inevitably we'd have to deal with a caseworker. And so she came over, she interviewed us separately, toured our house, took pictures of everything.
And something is not adding up to me, and it is the dates. So we for sure know that somebody reported Gypsy and Ken during early April. That is confirmed because they posted the report online. I think a lot of people forgot about that, but this is what's important, because during Ken's video, he also mentions that they were reported for blowing in Aurora's face, like the crying video, and multiple other things at CPS. And if you take a look at the paperwork that Gypsy provided, it does show a similar style. And as far as the date, I know a couple of people were questioning about how the date was written and the fact that it doesn't say the word August and it's just numbers and some various other things, like the heading on the paper doesn't look official and it looks kind of like she just typed it out herself. So let's go back and take a look at the report that this person posted online for everyone to see. And if you don't remember, this woman actually was kind of, in my opinion, a little odd. She was doing a lot. She was finding their phone numbers online and calling them, kind of freaking out for Aurora, because that was around the same time when Gypsy posted that video online of the baby crying and saying she was colicky, which was also around the time that Ken had left to go to Florida. And we all kind of, assumed it had something to do with that and Gypsy wanting to make Ken feel bad during his little trip for whatever the reason that he was going on. We don't really know. But it just kind of made sense why she would post a video of her rocking the baby, looking overwhelmed, and it was just really not a good look given Gypsy's history. And I also made a video about this woman. I posted the calls. It's probably, I guess, sometime around in April if you want to scroll back, but I'm going to go ahead and include the information here so you don't have to do that. But the original report was made by a woman who claimed to have made the call, and she also reported around the time of the video where the baby was crying. And then after rumors and concerns about Gypsy blowing in the baby's face, people kind of speculated that it was a way to, work up the baby and get the baby to start crying or whatever. She posted the report paperwork online for everybody to see, verifying that she did in fact call CPS on Gypsy and Ken, and that they were going to update them, and that they did find validity to what she said. Therefore, an investigation would be opened. And if you look at this document, it says that this call or the report was made on 4/14/2025. So as far as the way that the date is written, I don't really feel like overly suspicious about that. I think that is kind of, nothing. But what I do find a little bit odd is the dates do not match up with the document that Gypsy Rose provided versus when we know for a fact that somebody called on them and posted that report. So as I said earlier, their report, the woman that made the call, which her name was Chrissy G, I believe. I haven't honestly seen anything from her since that whole incident, but that was on April 14th. And Gypsy's paperwork that she posted or sent to somebody else to post for her shows that the call or the report was received on the 1st of April. So that's an entirely different date. Now, of course, it is entirely possible that somebody else called on Gypsy, but one thing is for sure that we do know somebody did 100% call and received paperwork in order to prove exactly why they called. They explained why they called, and the fact that Ken mentions those exact reasons as to why DCFS showed up to their home, it's kind of weird to me, honestly.
And I'm calling you in hopes that you will understand how concerned the world is for your granddaughter. It's not because we don't like or appreciate that your stepdaughter got away with murdering her mother, or that the FOA documents prove that she's an absolute weirdo and that Ken needs to run far away. That's not why we're concerned. We're concerned because she prioritizes online and doesn't prioritize her child. You might be saying, how do you know that? You're not around here. Because it shows. Keep her off the internet.
Your name and number with a brief message, and I'll return your call as soon as I can. Thank you, and have a great day.
I'm not sure if you got the other message. I get so frustrated talking about this girl that I fumble upon my words. But in a nutshell, we're all very concerned about Aurora. And it's really not because Gypsy, part of it is, but we see what goes on online. How does she not know that baby yet?
And if you look at the papers, the language is different within the report. So typically within paperwork that is received or letters from DCFS, it'll typically say like they're mandated by law. We are required to provide you with a summary of our findings for the exact child's name. It's very specific about which child they were checking on, things like that. And in Gypsy's letter, it doesn't really say any of those personal details that are necessary. So it will say like what they're looking for, the child. It won't just be like a random child. It doesn't keep that information private necessarily. It will tell you all of that for your records, basically saying like you had a call on this child and this is what was or was not found. This is what happened. Therefore, it's unsubstantiated, whatever. But the language that is in Gypsy's letter that she posted is kind of odd to me. It doesn't read like it would come from an actual DCFS report, because typically they never say the report is not valid. They don't say things like that. They don't say it was made up. They don't say the person was lying, nothing like that. So let's take a look and read what Gypsy's letter says. The Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services completed the investigation of suspected child abuse neglect on a report received on 4/1/2025 concerning a child or children in your care. The investigation has been completed and we did not find sufficient information to support a finding of abuse or neglect. Therefore, the finding for this investigation is invalid, not justified. That's the part that I find a little bit weird. I just feel like they don't do that. Typically, they'll say it's unsubstantiated or they couldn't find it. They will never say that somebody was 100% innocent or that they 100% never found any sort of things or that it was a not valid report. They won't do that because sometimes they can check and they don't see anything, but they're not going to write that they don't see anything in case something comes back later. If that makes sense. I'm kind of rambling, but if that makes sense to you, you know what I mean. It says, the information about the investigation is confidential and will not be released to persons outside of DCFS unless as authorized by the law. The case information will be kept for 7 years as required by Louisiana law. After that time, the case record will be destroyed and no other investigations involving you or a child in your care. The case destruction will occur automatically and will require no action on your part. Now, I'm not entirely sure if it would write differently or they wrote it this way in case there were multiple reports for one child. I don't know if that really makes a difference. But any of the letters that I have seen, and I know some people on Reddit had also posted some variations of letters specifically from Louisiana, and that's why there was some question about whether or not Gypsy just typed this up herself, because during Ken's live video, he was not willing to show the actual document showing that they were cleared or that the case was closed, because it did contain personal information, but you know, this letter doesn't really show a whole lot blocked out that they couldn't have just like put their finger over during the video either. But I do find it very weird that the dates do not match for somebody that we know reported for sure, received documented paperwork showing that they reported and that their report, that specific report, would lead to an investigation. Or two, it did not include the name of the child that they were investigating for. Typically, it usually says that as far as I have seen. Now, of course, I'm not an expert and I know every single, DCFS organization, depending on the county or wherever all over the entire country, is different and they do things differently. But it would not surprise me that this was just typed out. Basically, especially with that wording, not justified, not verified, or whatever, it's not valid, the claims. They do not say that, even if the whole thing is just not substantiated or they don't find any evidence to support what was reported. They're not going to say that just because they can't. It will typically just say unsubstantiated, and then towards the bottom it will tell you if you believe that this case was filed falsely or you believe someone lied, you can sue them or whatever, or if you have any questions or you want to kind of go against what was decided, which obviously if it was, you know, closed or whatever, nobody's going to go against it. But if, say, it wasn't coming back cleared, you have the ability to go against what their decision was or what the ruling was as far as the case and kind of appeal it, essentially. And again, the fact that Gypsy and Ken both had to do not only a urinalysis, but a hair follicle test, which I'm sure her shaving her head is definitely not going to look good either, because some people already believed that she was cutting her hair and bleaching her hair in order to kind of get around the whole testing situation. But if you didn't know, now you do, that they will take hair from any place on your body. It doesn't matter. And if it comes back that they can't, they will automatically fail you. That's just the way it goes. So it doesn't really matter whether, you know, Ken shaved his head or Gypsy shaved her head. But regardless, and again, I am not saying for 100% without a doubt that Gypsy falsified this paperwork or falsified this document, because there is absolutely no way for me to know 100%, you know, absolute certainty whether or not she did that. But I'm just saying Gypsy was obviously worried enough about the whole CPS situation and getting her child taken away due to her own actions, enough to delete her public profile. And that's clearly why she did it. She was worried about things, you know, going wrong, especially whenever people were accusing Ken of using substances on live. Now, personally, I'm not too sure about that. It could have been the vape. I don't really know, but the behavior is very weird. And now with Gypsy shaving off her hair, cutting it short, that is a sign of a mental break.
Oh, baby sweets. Almost there.
I know. I get to give you the bottle. You don't want it. Okay, now you want it. I know. Oh, my friend said they're in there.
In where?
In your live.
Okay.
They're in there. I know, Johnny. Okay. Come on. You know what you mean?
Yeah. So what?
It's sleepy time. Yes. Oh, what you do? Pat the bed.
Okay. Well, tell him to unblock me, and we'll battle it out. I don't care.
You want to go live?
I don't have the
part of the internet that would say that I would forge this statement, you know, and no, I did not, you know, and I can prove that I didn't. I mean, the only way that I can prove it is I can show you the full statement. I can show you the uncropped phone number, and then you can research the number for yourself. And that's the best that I can do. And
that sounds fair, man. That sounds fair. And like I said, I'm going to give you that benefit of the doubt anyway. But I would love if you want to.
Friends fly in from different states. Even there, what I was saying was we have no plans to be in the French Quarter that night. Saying was that we're not for the overall 5-10 minute was me telling y'all that you know the billboard might as well be in a
Yes,
that was the reality of the situation.
Okay, that's fair.
Clearly, Gypsy keeps up with every single thing that anybody ever says about her, and her going off the internet and still managing to keep up with every single video, even the smallest of creators, the people that have like one follower on TikTok, she somehow finds their video. I don't know how anybody would have time to do that in between her doing her art that she's so overwhelmed with that she had to stop taking orders, and being a mother to a young child. If her child's, you know, at that point where they're starting to get a little bit more mobile, or they need to be, whether they're crawling or not, you need to be moving them around and doing stuff and trying to encourage that milestone, which we don't really know because Gypsy doesn't really speak about that in her whole motherhood journey. She's abandoned her family vlog, but Gypsy, like, shaving off her hair that short is a huge red flag to me. And I know people thought it was funny and, you know, hilarious that Gypsy was clapping back at the content creators, or also known as her haters and her bullies, which honestly, that is crazy to me, considering that they think what content creators do by reporting on her own actions, what she does and what she says, they consider that to be bullying. And by they, I mean her supporters or, just random people that don't keep up with it, but they just will support Gypsy for whatever reason. And they give her every excuse in the book because of her story or whatever lies she's fed to the media. She gets a free pass for that, and then she gets to do a 1 hour long video on the effects of the effects of bullying and how she thinks it's disgusting and it's not worth it, but it's considered clapping back when she does it. It's considered funny. They think it's no different than what a comedian does.
I know with 100% certainty that I had to take out my teeth for this one. I know with 100% certainty that Gypsy Rose Blanchard did not give birth to any baby. That baby was delivered at the hospital by the Area 51 people.
Is Jimmy Fallon also a bully? I've seen comments like that from a lot of people, but it's like, are news reporters bullying? Are journalists bullying? Is like, that's the same kind of bizarre comparison. I'm not saying content creators are journalists, but that's like the same way they're comparing Gypsy to being a comedian, or like Jimmy Fallon to excuse her behavior. But she is the only one out of the two that has claimed to be against bullying. What? That doesn't make any sense. I even wrote in one comment, like, to kind of put it into perspective, how illogical it is for her to be doing this, even if it's clapping back and her getting tired of it. She is the one that brought in the effects that it has on people and their mental health, and how it should be, against the law, and how the police need to get more involved, from state to state or whatever. That's like, hypothetically, say I make a video on being anti-racist, against racism. Racism is bad. And then somebody says something about me that, may or may not be construed as racist to me. And then I go and call every single person that's ever made me mad or said something about me some sort of racial slur. Now, although I've made my videos that I say I'm not racist and racism is bad, it kind of cancels all of that out when you start literally doing what you're preaching against. And for whatever reason, her supporters, her followers, don't grasp that concept. It's not the point that she made the video, like, it's not important that she made the videos, clapping back at her haters or whatever. She's free to do that, but she also needs to own up to what she does. She doesn't get a free pass for anything because nobody else does. And let me just say, this is the same girl who claimed to have such a horrible and traumatic upbringing, specifically around her head being shaved. She believes she had cancer and that she was sick, and her mother told her it was going to fall out anyway. But then simultaneously in the book, Gypsy doesn't bring up that it was for cancer. She says it was to keep her looking like a boy, to be looking androgynous, because maybe her mother was jealous of her beauty, or that she reminded her of her dad with her hair, or, a million other reasons. And it didn't really go into the whole narrative of Gypsy believing that she had leukemia, which we know that's not true, because during other videos we see that it says cancer survivor when she's going up to sing on stage. If you're being announced to a crowd that you're a survivor of cancer, why would you actively think that you have cancer? Why she tells people that? I don't know. But for somebody to have this huge traumatic relationship to hair and not being able to grow her hair out, and being forced to look like a boy all the time in her princess outfits, why is she doing this? And I know she has messed with her hair like a million times, and people are saying, well, maybe she just wants to experiment. But why would you experiment in a way that is exactly tied to what traumatized you? I get her wanting to, dye her hair whatever color or whatever, but, and even the claims that it was so damaged, yeah, like her hair was damaged from the bleaching fails and all the little DIY things that she was doing, but it was nowhere near to the point where she had to cut her hair off. Like, hair can take some pretty intense things. I mean, let's be honest, and just looking at her hair, yeah, it looked damaged, but it was not damaged beyond repair, there was no reason, like, logically for her to have to shave her hair. And I think really that points to a mental breakdown. It points to mental instability, and we know that Gypsy has a history with that anyway. She has said that a million times. For example, whenever her and Ken broke up the first time, she talks about chopping off her hair in prison, trying to do anything to get attention.
He is interested in blondes. I'm not blonde, I'm a brunette. So I go in the shower, take fingernail clippers, and just cut my hair off. Trying to do everything I can to get his attention again.
And perhaps that's what this is. She wants attention. She's lacking in that attention. She had to delete her public profiles with over 9 million followers, as she likes to always point out, even in those messages where she's going at Rachel Garlick. For whatever reason, she decided to randomly message her ex-best friend and start some crap with her. But maybe it's the lack of attention that feeds Gypsy, and maybe that's why she shaved her hair off in the beginning anyway. So Gypsy not getting the public attention that she's used to, or she's saying she's taking a step back, but she just can't handle the fact that she's not getting that, and it's not coming to her in the way that she wanted specifically. She's got a lot of people that are against her, that are pointing out what she's doing. I honestly think it's a sign that things are not going good in the upstairs portion. You know what I mean? Even in the emails, Gypsy talks about shaving off her eyebrows, and we know that she's done that in the past. I think there was even a video mentioning that, you know, her eyebrows didn't grow well because she shaved them off in prison. And then while she was also in prison, she tried to bleach her hair, except in the prison they don't allow bleach, so it turned it orange. And she compared herself to that girl from the movie It. And I think a lot of it has to do with where she's at mentally. Even if it's not that big of a deal, Gypsy could, it's just a sign. And we know that even from like a psychological standpoint, when we see people that are doing major changes to their appearance, that's kind of a red flag. So something that is called echotemnomania, or hair cutting, it is a body-focused, repetitive behavior that involves the compulsive act of cutting or shaving one's hair. It falls under the category of obsessive compulsive in related disorders, or OCRD. It is closely related to trichotillomania, which is hair pulling, and, you know, various other things. When it's coming from somebody that is just chopping off their hair and making major changes to their appearance, it is a red flag, especially looking at it like from the perspective of like a mental health professional. They look for things like that whenever they're evaluating somebody. They're looking for major changes. And I think honestly, if Gypsy was in therapy, they would be concerned. But knowing Gypsy, she more than likely is not working on her mental health, because she is somebody that believes that there's nothing to really work on. According to some of the research that I've done on, you know, why people may change drastically in certain periods of their life, it says that it seems like a simple act of personal grooming, but it's often significant psychological weight and can be a powerful tool for self-expression and emotional regulation. Haircutting can be a way to manage overwhelming emotions, especially during periods of high stress, anxiety, or depression. Altering one's appearance can be a tangible way to feel a sense of control when life feels out of control. So again, this relationship that Gypsy has with control, yeah, that could make sense. And perhaps it was never Dee Dee that cut Gypsy's hair in the first place. Maybe Gypsy was the first one to cut her own hair. Maybe in a rebellious way, she didn't want to be mom's pretty little princess and shaved her hair off, so then they just went with the narrative that Gypsy was a cancer survivor and used it to their benefit, and maybe Gypsy liked the attention that she got from that. We all know Gypsy enjoyed wearing wigs and having different personalities or whatever and doing different things, kind of cosplaying different characters instead of, you know, being herself. She liked stepping into those other characters. She liked being somebody else. It wasn't something that she was forced to do. It's who she is and what she likes to do. There's multiple videos of her talking about how she likes wearing wigs. Obviously, even at their recent little Jazz Fest thing that they went to, Gypsy was wearing a wig. She's been wearing a blue wig. whether it's extensions or whatever, and that's not abnormal to want to wear extensions or even a wig. But I think the shaving of the hair, honestly, I think it reveals a lot more about her and her past history. And perhaps a lot of us, like we've theorized in the past, maybe it was not Dee Dee that did it. Perhaps Gypsy is just trying to grasp at anything and everything that she can in order to gain some sense of control, or maybe she just feels like she's losing control, especially of the narrative in the public. She's losing the public support, but who knows? I mean, she still has a lot of supporters, and for whatever reason, she doesn't care about that, which, I mean, to be quite frank, she said she doesn't care about any of her supporters, but she only wants to focus on people that, you know, say different, and to focus on the negative more than the positive. But I don't know, I think it's a lot deeper than that. I think it's something going on, whether it has to do with the whole CPS thing or it has to do with her prison emails getting released, which we know that's bothered her. She said it did, and even bringing it up in those text messages with her friend or ex-friend Rachel Garlick, kind of threatening her in a way, saying, you know, wait till they get to yours, you used me, and then bringing up her trying to sell her underwear online. Like, she always got to take everything, like, so she's always going to take it into a sexual direction about her no matter what, which is besides the point. But I don't really see Gypsy being able to stay private. Obviously, she's not. I've never seen anybody that makes their account private and then literally sends out their information for somebody else to post. If you want to be private, then go private. But if you want to be in the public, don't be sending your stuff so you can make sure that, you know, whatever you want still gets out or whatever. That's just weird to me. But, you know, who knows? But I want to know what you guys think about Gypsy cutting her hair off. What do you think about the document? Do you think Gypsy forged this paperwork, which apparently is illegal to do? Do you think it's weird that the dates don't match up? What are your thoughts on it? Do you think they have something to do with each other? Drop your thoughts down below in the comments. As always, don't forget to like and hit the subscribe button so you can keep up to date with anything I've got coming out on my channel. I will see you guys on the next one. Bye!